can you tell the difference between humans and animals in these settings?
Yeah. So let's break your question up then. So, the testing right now, our occupancy and rapid automation engines, they come trained from us to our customers, but we do a tremendous amount of AI work to train them a lot. Now, in the future, that may not be the case. In the future, you may have a system in your house that learns what happens. You know what I mean? And so, but they come pre-trained with a lot of AI. And then as it relates to human versus pet, yes, our engines will detect human versus non-human. Why is that important? Because in the security vertical, home security, the biggest problem in home security is false alarms. What sets off false alarms? Your dog, your cat. If a curtain moves because the air conditioning is working, if, believe it or not, the sunlight comes in and a PIR senses the heat, it'll go off. Ramifications, oscillating fans. So what we have is human versus non-human, right? That's the really what the use case calls for.
We're going through something absolutely historic.
Technologies across the board are growing exponentially.
It's a disruption that's going to completely redefine the way businesses compete.
In the next decade, we're going to lose 40% of today's Fortune 500 companies.
The exponential growth of computing is continuing.
AI is nowhere near its full potential.
Whether you like it or not, that the future cannot be stopped by anyone.
Hi there, everybody. This is Mark Verbenkov, and welcome back to the Future Tech and Foresight podcast. This is episode number 159, and today we are taking a slight break from total focus on artificial intelligence to talk about something, one specific technology that I find absolutely fascinating, and I am so happy to finally have an episode where we can dive into it, and that is, of course, Wi-Fi sensing. Now, we'll get into exactly what Wi-Fi sensing is during the actual episode, but generally speaking, it's about enabling your Wi-Fi router to monitor and sense what is actually going on in your home and to tell how many people or bodies are actually in your house and moving around. So it's a very unique, very interesting technology that has a whole bunch of different ramifications, as I'm sure some of you who've listened to the podcast long enough can start thinking and having your mind come up with all these different kind of possibilities of what this technology can actually do. I get into it with the guest today about both the positive and negative ramifications of Wi-Fi sensing. Of course, there's a lot of good and interesting possibilities for the economy, for businesses, and for individuals. As you'll hear, smart homes are, of course, one of the centers of focus for Origin AI, which is the company that is trying to build the Wi-Fi sensing technology that's brought onto the podcast today. It's really interesting. I won't talk about what we discuss in the episode too much in this pre-introduction, because I think that the topic and the technology kind of speak for themselves. But of course, security and privacy are talked about, as many of you want to hear in the episodes as much as possible. But yeah, so without further ado, I think I'll just introduce the guest today and then let the interview speak for itself. So my guest is Tony Nicolaidis. He is the Chief Commercial Officer for Origin AI, a company using Wi-Fi sensing technology to revolutionize smart homes, healthcare, and home security by allowing for non-invasive and highly accurate monitoring, utilizing the current devices around your home or office. So by monitoring occupancy in real time, Origin AI solutions enable intelligent HVAC control, motion detection, patient monitoring, and much more. This technology serves a diverse array of technologies. Origin has partnered with companies like Alarm.com, Verizon, and Deutsche Telekom, which we'll definitely hear about more in today's episode. It's a really interesting episode. I think I'll have to write a little bit more about Wi-Fi sensing, and as I talked with Tony afterwards, we'll definitely have to have him back on the podcast to dig up a little bit more about this interesting technology and all the kind of impacts it's going to have for businesses and society as a whole. Thanks a lot. Great. Well, thank you very much, Tony, for coming onto the podcast today to talk about technology that I'm not too familiar with. So really happy that you're on here to talk about Wi-Fi sensing, what it is, what it holds for the future, and what kind of impacts it's going to have. So thanks for coming on.
Mark, thank you for the opportunity. It's great to be here.
Great. Well, why don't we just start with what exactly this technology is? What is Wi-Fi sensing? I know about it a little bit, as I mentioned, but I'm looking forward to getting into the impacts, kind of opportunities, and all the things that are going to come out from it. But let's just start off very simply. What exactly is Wi-Fi sensing?
Wi-Fi sensing is a technology that, we have Wi-Fi everywhere. Wi-Fi is ubiquitous. It will become part of our life inside and outside the house, everywhere. Basically, our technology can, as we move through Wi-Fi, as everything moves through Wi-Fi, they disrupt those Wi-Fi waves. And those disruption in Wi-Fi waves, our technology can contextualize them and can determine what's going on in that space as it relates just through the analysis of the Wi-Fi disruption.
Mm-hmm.
So using Wi-Fi to understand use cases like, is there someone there? Is there not? How they've been around the house trend-wise and what they're doing around the house in different areas of the house. Get into home security,
Yep.
right? Which is an industry that we are very, very serious about, residential security, into age tech and health tech and understanding about, elderly parents, and are they spending too much time here versus here, and are their habits changing? Have they fallen? This kind of thing really allows us to understand that contextualization of the Wi-Fi waves allows us to really get a clear understanding what's happening in the space.
Yeah. So, you're working in this all the time, so it's probably, you're thinking about it all the time. It's nothing new to you. I first heard about this, I think I mentioned to you before the recording, about a year ago for the first time. And I was a little bit blown away, and I work in tech. I'm trying to get as many like new emerging technologies into my little mind as possible. And this really blew me, like it genuinely blew me away that this is actually possible. Lots of ideas kind of percolate to the surface once you hear about this technology. But it is shocking, and we'll touch on the implications of it later on, the impact, the potential uses. I guess the first question following from that is, like, how does this work? Is it I'm assuming it's a secondary device. You can't just do this directly through the router, or is there some sort of AI algorithm that you shove into the router that's able to figure this out? Like, how maybe like tangibly, how does this work?
Yeah. So routers or anything else that's connected to a network in a home has a Wi-Fi chip in it. The Wi-Fi chip can be made by MediaTek, Realtek, Broadcom, Qualcomm, you name all the chip manufacturers. We sit as firmware on that chip.
Firmware, okay.
All right, on that chip. And that chip can go into a router. Verizon's a very big customer for us. It can go into a security solution like Verisure, the largest security company in Europe. And it can be a residential security system, or alarm.com here in the US. Or it can go anywhere where these Wi-Fi chips are. Once we work out that the Wi-Fi chip will be able to function and execute the origin we call engines, then it can go into anything.
Very interesting. I mean, lots of questions. Really, really fascinating. One of the first questions that I actually always ask guests is like, how you got into this line of work, into this tech.
Yeah.
But I think we needed to start off like, what exactly is this tech before we go into that? So could we backtrack and say like, well, what led you into getting involved in this technology, in this line of work?
So I've been involved in startups now since 2015, 14.
Okay.
And every startup I've been involved in has somehow or other been in the software space, and most of them were focused on Wi-Fi.
Okay.
And the use of Wi-Fi, and the fact that building off Wi-Fi wherever it is, because it's going to become, like we said, it's going to be everywhere. People complain of Wi-Fi outages, but that's going to become less and less and less as time goes on, just like electricity at one point was.
Sure,
right?
Sure.
And so the fact that it was on Wi-Fi, I was familiar with Wi-Fi. And then secondly, the science, our CTO and founder is the inventor of the technology, Dr. Ray Liu, L-I-U. Okay. Dr. Ray Liu is a world-renowned digital signal processing scientist. He was a professor at the University of Maryland, and then doing some government work, he discovered what Wi-Fi sensing was. And then when I first talked to him, he had baked a technology for over 5 years before he even brought on people to commercialize it. So he really thoroughly made sure the technology was right from a digital signal processing standpoint. He wrote a book called Wireless AI. You get the book.
Okay.
And how he did it, and using the physics concepts of time reversal to be able to understand and locate and contextualize these disruptions in the waves. It's amazing.
Yeah.
So I was always involved in startups here for the last 10 years. I love working with Wi-Fi. And then when I talked to Dr. Ray Liu and realized just how sound the science and the math and the physics behind it was, I was in. I was in immediately. I said, please, I want to be part of this. And it happened pretty quickly.
Fascinating. Okay, very cool. So maybe one of the questions that I had specifically with the technology is like, what is I think the right word would be like resolution. Like how clear are you able to see like movements, or I guess in this term it would be disruptions to the Wi-Fi signal. And of course, understanding that it's going to get better over time, probably significantly better over time with AI improvements being as what they are now. Could you touch on like how clear, like, can you make out that there's two people in a room and they're walking beside each other? Are there dogs and, cats and other pets in the room? Like what's the resolution? What's the clarity that you can see?
Yeah. So I would say that it's not a matter of clarity. It's a matter of how quick our engines pick up that there's somebody there. So like in our rapid automation engine, by rapid automation, I mean, if you have a router sitting right here and you have a smart device, like a light bulb, from that light bulb to that router, it's going to create this oval sensing zone. Once a human walks into that sensing zone, within a half second, we're going to know there's somebody there. Now, we can't tell you if there's one person or 100 people there. What we can tell you is in that zone, there is human presence. We're all about verified human presence, which today you can't do without extremely expensive radar devices.
Right.
I mean, so it's about how quick it picks it up. And then the other thing, Mark, is about, let's say you walk into a sensing zone, boom, we picked you up in a half second. Let's say you sat down and you're watching TV in that zone. Well, you're not really moving anymore in any grand fashion. Our occupancy engine, it has macro, large movement detection, and has micro, breathing detection. Believe it or not, you breathing and your chest and your torso moving up and down, the Wi-Fi waves react to that, and we know you're there. So if you're sitting watching TV, we'll always know you're there, right? Or in sleeping for that matter. So it can apply to turning the TV on. It can apply to your smart thermostat, always knowing there's somebody in the house. It can apply to offices where, how many times in your office, Mark, do you have to go like this for an infrared sensor to notice you're there because you stopped moving? You know what I mean?
Sure.
We'll always know you're there. We'll always have the lights on when you're there and the lights off when you're there. Air conditioning when you're there on, and when you're not there off. So we can immediately sense you, and then we can know you're there or not know you're there. And it's a matter of time and recognition that there's verified human presence.
Yeah. So I'm assuming that this recognition patterns have been trained off of with artificial intelligence for the kind of home applications that you mentioned at the beginning that we should maybe dive into, and kind of going back to one of my questions, like, can you tell the difference between humans and animals in these settings?
Yeah. So let's break your question up then. So, the testing right now, our occupancy and rapid automation engines, they come trained from us to our customers. So we do a tremendous amount of AI work to train them a lot. Now, in the future, that may not be the case. In the future, you may have, a system in your house that learns what happens. You know what I mean?
Sure.
And so, but they come pre-trained with a lot of AI. And then as it relates to human versus pet, yes, our engines will detect human versus non-human. Why is that important? Because in the security vertical, home security, the biggest problem in home security is false alarms. What sets off false alarms? Your dog,
Yes.
cat. If a curtain moves because the air conditioning is working, if, believe it or not, the sunlight comes in and a PIR senses the heat, it'll go off. Rhombovac, oscillating fans. So what we have is human versus non-human.
Yeah.
Right. That's the really what the use case calls for. So we can detect human versus non-human, which is a very, very important use case for us.
Very interesting. Yeah, and I'm assuming that the fidelity of that is only going to increase over time once these AI models are trained more, and it's going to happen a lot faster, right? Like, people might be thinking, 5 years, 10 years. No, it'll probably be 6 months, 12 months, something like that.
I can't contain my excitement when I think about it. Right now, we have a number of verticals we can talk to. I'm going to throw them out to you right now. ISPs, right? Real quick. Verizon. Where are you located, Mark?
I'm in Vancouver, Canada, actually.
Vancouver. Okay. So on the East Coast, Northeast here, Verizon, Fios, all the routers have our engine on them, and they have a product called Home Awareness. We are about to launch in Europe with Deutsche Telekom, doing the same thing. Just verified human presence in the home. After Deutsche Telekom, we're going to do T-Mobile, which is part of the same company. So ISPs are a very, very big vertical for us, number one. Number two, security. Residential and small, medium business security. Very important. We are launching, like I said, Verisure, which is the number 2 security company in the world, up to ADT, largest in Europe. We have launched in France and Spain. We're going to be launching in Europe, in Northern Europe and in Southern Europe. And we have Alarm.com here in the US that we're going to be launching. And then what we call smart spaces, the third. Smart spaces are things like smart thermostats and smart light bulbs. We've launched with the largest light bulb manufacturer in the world. We can't say their name, but you go out there and you can get a Wi-Fi light bulb that has Wi-Fi sensing on it, so that when you buy 2 light bulbs, you just put them in there, you screw them in, and they create their own sensing zone. You walk in between that sensing zones, boom, within half a second, the light bulb's on. And then you can set the time to turn them off. 3, right? ISP, security, and smart spaces. Now, when you look at the verticals we're in today and how the technology is evolving today, there are certain limitations that are happening, right? ISPs communicate with other smart devices at a certain frequency, right? Imagine if we can change that. Imagine if we can, make that different, then that allows us to explode in different use cases that are would blow your mind right now that I couldn't really go into. So the future that's coming with our technology is so unbelievable that we're off to a great start, but I'm telling you, it's only going to get better and faster, like you say.
Yeah. And this is, this is certainly a theme that comes on the podcast with all the great guests that I have. It's, be excited already, because your technology, I think, is, personally, I was very, very curious to hear what you were having to say, but, not to denigrate my other guests, they're also working on some pretty cool things. And everybody's saying there's really interesting things now, but, again, 5, 10 years, 3 years, however, the time, whatever time frame you want to look at. I think that the future is both fascinating and terrifying, depending on the use cases, the kind of companies that are being that are implementing and adopting some of these technologies.
Yeah,
really, really interesting.
We don't by the way, Mark, we don't identify people.
We don't. Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry if I'm jumping ahead. Forgive me.
No.
We don't identify people. Right now, we don't even count people. Right now, it's verified human presence for the use cases that we're focused on. It's about, you talk to a lot of startups, if you don't focus, you'll never get off the ground. And you got to focus and then land and expand. And so all our customers right now are all very, very focused use cases. So we don't count people. All our data is done on the edge. All our calculations are done on the edge. There's no cloud element to us. So data privacy is very, very high.
Okay.
So all of that is done in a way that we hopefully minimize your terror in the future. And I'm not even saying 10 years down the line. I'm saying it's going to happen here in the next 3 to 4 years. So keep a lookout for us. And I would love to come back and update you whenever you want me back.
Absolutely. No, I love having guests coming back on the podcast. I also plan to do this until I've got 2 feet in the grave. I love doing this thing. So happy to have you back. Maybe we could touch on this fear factor a little bit more, because I talk to a number of my my audience members every now and then, and there's
there's a lot of fear for the future. Not just Wi-Fi sensing, but AI, robots. I mean, everything. It's pretty obvious to anybody paying attention to emerging technologies. There's uncertainty, and uncertainty breeds fear. So I'm happy to hear that you have these private, these privacy policies and actions in place. But this. I guess my point here is this is your company, right? So you are doing tremendous work to make things as private and secure as possible. But I am sure that there are, maybe 3-letter agencies or other organizations that are not so concerned with the privacy of this technology. Have you? I mean, I can't ask if you've interacted with those people and heard their thoughts, but like generally speaking, what's your response to something like that? Because of course there's good use cases for your technology, but there's others not so much.
I think the technology is just limited. When you start getting into areas that become scary, Wi-Fi sensing, you go beyond its limits. Again, imagine it's the Wi-Fi. It's like a water. You're in a pool, and the water waves are moving like this, and that's all we're going to get from Wi-Fi. We don't have cameras. I think the inherent limitations of just using Wi-Fi, which is what we're focused on, will put guardrails on what all we can do. It really will. And, so listen, when it comes to age tech, understanding, I have aging parents. And we just launched with a company in Japan called C+C. If you can look it up on LinkedIn. They have the largest Asian population in the world. I want to know if my parents are now spending a lot more time in the bedroom this month than last month, a lot more time in the bathroom this month versus last month. I want to know those things. If they're willing to have the tech in the house, I see it. And all I see is where they've been. I don't know which one of them it is. I don't know if they have guests in there that did it. I don't know. All I know is they're down there. So, even the use cases that are simple and they get more complex, fall detection, very complicated use case.
Right.
Very. Right. It can be done, but it's you got to have enough hardware and the technology's got to work the right way. I know somebody fell. I don't know who it is. I know that hopefully they're breathing. I know that. And that's it. And all I want to know is if a caretaker, get the ambulance there, call me, let's whatever. Because I've had my mother-in-law fall, and it's a very, very serious thing, especially when it happens multiple times. Yeah. So to answer your question a long way, I do not think the inherent technology of itself is going to let us get to those places. If I was in video and cameras, different story.
Right. Yeah. And I'm not gonna focus on this for the whole podcast. Don't worry. But it's just something that needs to be discussed, because if I don't do it, I'm gonna get a lot of pushback from the audience. Of
course. And I hope I answered your question too. So
yeah. No, for sure. The only maybe one other last point connected to this, during the COVID pandemic, I interviewed a lot of like virtual reality headset type people. So there was all of this discussion. There's quite a wealth of information on the podcast about biomarkers or biosensing, like understanding the biometrics. It's been a while. The biometrics of people with these cameras and the different kind of sensors that the cameras or Wi-Fi headsets are able to have. And with that information, now I'm not saying that you guys have that, but with that information, you're able to sell the biometrics to advertising, and you're able to just get a much more fine-grained resolution image of what somebody is doing, like your gait as you're walking, as you're moving. Like you can understand who it is based on just putting the headset on. And I'm just maybe trying to connect these two things in my mind, and maybe it's an incorrect connection, but I would assume in, let's say, 5 years' time, if Wi-Fi sensing gets better, the AI algorithms get better, you're able to understand more details about who is actually in the room. And then with that, and not your company, but the industry as a whole would be able to give more information to advertisers or corporations or governments or whoever. And you're in America, so you guys are much more focused on privacy and security. and keeping the government out of your house and stuff like that. So there's lots of conversations that kind of go down these side tangents. So it's just something that needs to be brought up.
Listen, I think the element of the future being a scary thing is real.
Yeah.
Yeah. All I can tell you is that's not really what we're focused on. So
for sure.
That's where we are. That's where we are right now. You know what I mean?
For sure. Okay, well let's move on. I do want to get more into these industries, the applications that you're touching on, which I think is very interesting. I had some aging grandparents in old folks home, and I think my babushka fell down and she wasn't like, nobody in the care home was aware that she had fallen down for quite some time. So there's of course benefits to the type of technology that you're implementing. Could you touch on maybe some success cases that you've already seen? I mean, maybe you kind of touched on it already, but if you want to further elaborate on that, I think it would be great.
Yeah, I think the first success case is in Japan, where the Japanese government is very serious about understanding what's going on with the elderly across the country. It's funny, I don't know in Canada and the US if this would happen. They had a few instances where they had elderly people die alone, and people didn't even know they had died for weeks and weeks and weeks. And they found that to be a patriotically letting down their population. Now, in the US and Canada, this kind of stuff happens, and maybe we look at it differently. There, I mean, it was an all-out press to figure out technologies to do this. So we are executed. We're starting in Okinawa, where we're going to have, basically health check-ins, make sure the person's moving around and that kind of thing. We can do all of that today easily. Eventually we're going to get to other use cases like fall detection, but at least now they understand, okay, this person is going, this person is moving, this person is sleeping, whatever. And they call it sign of life. They call it.
Interesting.
That's what they want.
Yeah.
Sign of life. And so we just launched, and you can read that on LinkedIn. And that's really where we started, because we have investors there that got us involved with those organizations in Okinawa, and then from there we spread to Tokyo. Once you get Okinawa and Tokyo, then the rest is going to happen. Here in the U.S., we haven't necessarily we focus that there. We have another company called Threshold. You can look them up, and they have these smart plugs, and they're getting in the health space. You can look them up on LinkedIn. Great product, and our engines are in those smart plugs. So you buy a couple of smart plugs, 2-3 smart plugs, put them all over the house. Boom, you can tell what's going on, who's where, who's doing what, kind of a thing. The general flow of the house and what's going on. So that's launched primarily in Europe, but also coming to the U.S. now. And then in the U.S. right now, we're putting security first, ISPs and security first, and smart spaces. That's what we're doing in the U.S. right now. So that's kind of how it lines out where we're going to be doing the various verticals.
Okay, interesting. To follow up on the healthcare example, I've interviewed a couple of people that are talking about this new revolution in healthcare with AI and genetics, precision medicine, precision healthcare. Has there been any discussion, and I can't remember how long you guys have been around for, but has there been any discussion about like using the information and data that you are gathering for this sign of life, for instance, or as you mentioned, understanding a trend of, well, my elderly family member is going to the bathroom a little bit more, they're spending more time in bed. Like, with that data that you're able to collect, is there, that data can be plugged into another AI system that enables you to understand, well, my elderly parent is actually degrading, so maybe they need more care or they need different kind of care at certain points. Has there been discussion around that?
Yeah, so it gets complicated, but absolutely. You brought up Kate.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. It is very hard human to human to distinguish Kate. You can, but you need a tremendous amount of AI data over time, which, okay, maybe sometime it can happen. But, imagine being able to follow a person's gait over time, and especially with the elderly, as they get older, my father's gait has changed tremendously. He's 80. God, he'll be 88. Obviously, so his gait has changed tremendously, and you can see that over time. And by the way, as gait gets worse and worse, there's more risk to fall. So it's almost like a predictor, if you will. And you can look at a person's gait and be able to focus on that. And or if there's one person, obviously you can look at it and kind of predict what could happen with the person. So there are elements that you can do that can be predicted, that can predict something that can happen that you can get ahead of, and that way you can most definitely avoid any major issues.
Yeah, super interesting. As we've touched on and as we've mentioned a couple of times, I mean, the future is so interesting when it comes to these things, because there's more, with the more data that you have, the more kind of benefit to a certain population or demographic can really happen.
You got, and the thing about it is, again, it's all very, you got to be careful. You can't boil the ocean. This is what happens with a tech like this is, oh my God, we can do this, we can do that, we can do that, we can do it. All of a sudden you got to list 30 things.
Right.
You got to focus and start and build a business. This is great to talk about in concept about, oh my God, we talk about, we want to bring safety and security to millions of people. Good. Purpose. We have a reason to get up every day and go in and do this. But you've got to start with very focused use cases, get them off the ground, build your business, get your financials going. Then that allows you to afford to get
to go into other
use cases. You got it. And you've heard this before. I'm sure you've told 1,000 startups, right? It's the same story.
Yeah. No, fair enough. Do you want to elaborate a little bit more on the ISPs and the security aspect? If you didn't get enough time to talk about it in the last point.
No worries. So ISPs globally.
Yeah.
When you really look at ISPs today, I don't know who you have over in Vancouver, right? But, my Verizon app, I look at it to get my bill, and that's pretty much it. When you look at that market and what's going on and their margins, and it is really a race to the bottom. It's about speeds and feeds, and I can give you whatever, 100 megabytes, whatever, gigabytes, whatever, and then you come in and say, I can give you 150, and all of a sudden it's a race to the bottom, and that erodes profitability. And the ISPs are very much looking for new value-added services. How can I become stickier to my end customer and offer them things that are important? So they've absolutely come on and latched on to Wi-Fi sensing because they provide the Wi-Fi. And so they want to do things like, okay, first of all, let's just do awareness of the home. Are there people home, right? And depending on what sensors notice what, is it a small circle or a really big circle, kind of like visualizing the amount of people in there, and the right stakeholders can get that information. And they want to get into home security. They want to get into a place where they become so sticky that they want to offer that to their customers, right? So that is a very, very important and very big vertical for us. Again, we got Verizon and T-Mobile coming here in the U.S., and then you got Deutsche Telekom in Europe, and there's others. I mean, you name the company and think about it. We are talking to them, are in demonstrations with them, or we're close to signing with them. So that's very important vertical, ISP. Let me stop there for any questions for you in terms of maybe at the ISP vertical.
Maybe to make it a little bit more tangible. So I understand that there's an interest for these ISPs to move into home security. What is the exact benefit that they get right now? Is it just to test the awareness within the home so that they can build into home security, or is there something that makes them sticky? Maybe I missed that.
No, right now it's free.
Yeah.
You can say, oh, I'm going to do home awareness. It comes on, and now and their attach rate is skyrocketing. Okay. That gets them used to the technology. Hey, we can do this with your router. You already have it in your house. Done. Right? It's done. It's finished. And then once they build that, they can get into home security and go from there.
Okay. Very.
They also want to get into elderly care. I mean, elderly care is a big thing for them.
Yeah.
They want to become as sticky to the customer as possible.
Right. Okay, that makes sense. Okay, cool. Well, then go on with the next point that you were bringing up.
Yeah. So then we've got residential and small and medium business security, which is critically important. To give you a fun fact, there are 129 million homes in the U.S. 75 million of them do not have a security system. That's U.S. Forget Canada.
Yep.
Forget Latin America. Europe, 5% of the homes there have home security. I mean, it's a tremendous market. It'll be over the next couple of years, $100 billion market. It's massive, massive, massive. And so there's a lot of growth there. So there's a tremendous amount of opportunity there, but it's the same technology. It's the same. The biggest advance they've had is they've brought in video more into the home, which, by the way, is not popular, but they're putting it outside like Ring, perimeter security.
Yeah.
False alarms kill that industry, right? I don't know about in Canada, but the false alarms that now police here in the U.S. No longer responding to burglar alarms in Pittsburgh, Milwaukee, and Las Vegas, because it's just a waste of resources, mostly false alarms, right? In Jacksonville, I'm just looking at the numbers. 38% of the calls that come into the police are false alarms, right? So they're saying, we're not even doing that. So now they want very human intruder detection. And an infrared sensor is not going to give you that. So that's why they absolutely come over to us, and we can do not only verified human detection, but we can do human versus non-human. So this is massive, massive for us. And I think it's going to be, in the future as we move along, it's going to be incredibly huge for us. So, look for Verisure. You may not know Verisure, but look out for them, because that company is growing. And when you think of ADT in the future, which I'm sure you know, you're going to be thinking Verisure here in very soon. Okay,
very, very interesting. Are there any, I don't know if like a study is the right word, but are there any estimates on the resources that could be saved? Like if you're saying the high percentage of false alarms is happening, cops are already busy enough as it is, right? Like if they're wasting their time, money, resources, all connected on these false alarms, on these, burglaries that aren't burglaries, are there any, I don't know if you can, if it's possible, if it's not too challenging, estimates on the amount of overall money saved? Like America, if these,
we tend to look at it in the amount of calls that come in, but I don't have the dollars on my mind, but we're talking millions and millions of dollars per city or per municipality. Think about it. I get 3 calls. One of them is a false alarm. That police officer is running off there, and here, and so it's, I don't have them off the top of my head, but they're huge. On top of that, Mark, there's this thing called the AVS-01, which is alarm verification standard. So now in the U.S., I guarantee you, it's already big in Europe. It'll come here in North America. If you have an alarm system and you call the police and they come and it's nothing, you're going to get anywhere from $250 to $600 fine.
Right.
And, so there's a level 0 to a level 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. Level 2 is verified human presence. What we do, it's our promise to the world, right? And then level 4 is verified human presence with a threat to life. Level 3 is verified human presence with a threat to property. You know what I mean?
Right.
So if it's not 2, 3, or 4, no one's coming to your rescue. And you can pay all you want for a security system.
So interesting. Yeah, and I guess what you were just saying really fits into this. We were talking about terrifying future, fascinating future. It's really fascinating. If let's say there's $10 to $20 million per small municipality that can be saved with these verified human presence. It's you extrapolate that out to your country, my country. I mean, it's really massive, and the savings,
massive.
Yeah.
And think of Europe. Europe already has these fines because they don't have what we call monitoring centers like we have here in the U.S. and Canada and North America. They've got these extra security kind of companies, that security guards that come out. It's even more expensive there because the resources are slim. So it's going to happen across the world. And man, once this happens here, Asia is going to explode.
Sure.
So the global market's going to be massive. It's a big opportunity.
Yeah.
And we plan on making a very, very big dent in that market.
Yeah. No, it certainly sounds like it. And then also the social benefits that you get from it is going to be, second and maybe even third order effects will just be,
of course,
fascinating.
Of course. Yeah.
One question that popped into my mind again that I had at the beginning. So I'm living in a reasonably large house. We've got a lot of space here in Canada, and the Wi-Fi doesn't reach all over the place. So I'm assuming that is like a bit of a hurdle or a challenge for your company if there's like one Wi-Fi router and it doesn't reach everywhere. You're talking about these plugs. Are they also like Wi-Fi repeaters that would facilitate more coverage in the house, or like how do you deal with that challenge?
Yeah, excellent question. So let me answer it two ways too. So one of our plans in the security market is we have a try before you buy. You can grab your phone and you can walk around your house and you can see this graph saying, I see you. If it goes to 0, it doesn't see you. And you can walk around to all the parts of your home that you want to make sure are covered, right? Or you want your 100% of your home covered, like for example, the security use cases are around doors and windows. You know what I mean?
Sure.
And so you walk and you see this, and we give you a GUI that's going to be part of the thing that says, okay, and let's say you get to a spot that doesn't have it. Well, then you can, Verizon would love for you to call them or whoever you have and say, I'd like an extender, please. They'd love to sell you one of those.
Sure.
Or you can buy a smart plug from us that you can plug in. That is not a Wi-Fi extender. It's only an extender for our signal to make sure that we have coverage. Right. It creates a new zone. So it doesn't extend your Wi-Fi as much as it extends your origin coverage around the house. There's many ways to do it. You can buy a new light bulb, a new Alexa, you can throw it there. Whatever smart device, because we go from the router and it connects to all the smart devices on the networks and creates these zones all over the place, up and down, through walls, right? Wi-Fi goes through walls. Not like radar that you put a wall there, forget about it. So I'm sorry for all the hand motions.
No, it's fine.
So you can do all of that and know exactly where your coverage is and is not. Now, if you're in a place where Wi-Fi has spotty coverage, okay, that's a hurdle for us. There's no doubt about it.
Yeah.
But I think that those days and those situations are becoming less and less every day as we get as the world moves along. I'm sure in Vancouver, like here in Virginia, Wi-Fi and electricity are the same way. When everything's running well, you never think about it. When they're not, it's all you think about.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's going to be the same way. Wi-Fi will kind of do the same thing that electricity will.
Yeah. And I guess especially as the smart homes continue to be built out, this is an old home, like I'm plugged into Ethernet right now. The Wi-Fi absolutely doesn't extend out here, but the smart homes, like some of the new apartment complexes, I mean, everything's connected. You've got IoT sensors all over the place. So it makes perfect sense that maybe in the more like urban areas, these types of security measures are going to be, it sounds like it's more your
That's exactly right. And by the way, we don't need 100% of the market, right?
Sure,
we know that we're going to have growth over time. And any guess on the average, this is U.S., average amount of stationary smart devices in a U.S. home? Stationary, not your phone, not your iPad, not anything that moves. Average for the U.S. home. Any
Oh, good. Oh, you're putting me on the spot. That's a good question. For the average home, I mean, I want to say like 3 or 4, but I'm guessing it's more like 10 or 12 or something. Oh, U.S. home, actually, you guys are crazy over there. I don't know. Is it more like 12 or 15 because you guys are really
9.4.
Yeah,
your 10 was close enough. 9.4.
Yeah.
We did studies and we did thousands of them, and that's the average for the U.S. home. Now in Canada, maybe it'll be a little less. Right?
I would think so. Yeah.
You think so?
Yeah, I would think so.
Definitely less. And then you got to do the demographics. As people are older, they're going to have less smart devices. But like you look at my parents, my mother-in-law, my father-in-law, they've all got Alexas and they've all got smart TVs. And at least the people in our family are the same way. But I guarantee you, there's older folks that, all right, maybe they'll have 1 or 2 and that's it. But that will also only increase. It's not going to come down. So the point of our technology is signs point that yes, the world is ready for it. You know what I mean? And that's what we're excited about.
Super interesting. Okay, well, we've got a little bit of time left. One thought that popped into my mind, and I guess this kind of goes. I like talking about the future and what's gonna change at the end of the podcast. So I lived in Europe for about 10 years or so in Barcelona.
Where?
I lived in many different places like France, the Netherlands, Norway, but most of my time was spent in Barcelona. I was working there as a tech consultant.
Wow.
And Barcelona is known in Europe as one of the I don't know if it's the best smart city, but it's certainly like one of the main smart cities in all of Europe. And the thought that came into my mind was, well, they have a lot of like public Wi-Fi spaces. So you don't need to go from like, McDonald's or your office. Like there's kind of Wi-Fi in a lot of different places, and they've got these 5G towers all over the place. We're not going to touch on that, but they're there. My thought here is, more than, and I know you're really focused on your verticals right now, but moving beyond that, if there are these public Wi-Fi hubs where there are, I don't know, hundreds, thousands, tens of thousands of people walking through every day, like Barcelona specifically is a there's lots of walking spaces. The sidewalks are humongous. If you've never been,
right?
They're really.
I've never been to Artist. Yeah, I've never been.
It's a beautiful city. Highly recommend it.
Yeah.
I could imagine a time when Wi-Fi sensing technology is implemented in these places, and then like cities have a much better understanding of the mobility of their population, of the movements of their population, of crime potentially happening in their populations. Have you guys thought about that at all? Or like, is it on your roadmap into the future? Or is it you're so focused on these three verticals that we've been talking about that this is a little bit beyond?
That, no, we have not thought about that. I would say that we need to build use cases on that. Because look what Elon Musk is doing with Starlink. I mean, all of this is
that's what I'm going to eventually.
Yeah. So the question is, if the use cases are there and there's people that are interested in getting that kind of data, our technology will apply. If there's Wi-Fi there, our tech will do what it's supposed to do. End of story. And all you need to do is have a few smart devices, which, by the way, now they're going to be in the street lights too.
Sure.
So that's all you need. So your thought of these right now, we're focused on the smart home.
Yep.
Right. That very much is in our crosshair.
Yeah.
Very much.
Yeah.
The smart home has not become a reality. We firmly believe Wi-Fi sensing will be the unifying glue that brings everything together and allows you to know, all right, well, people are watching TV, TV's on, we know mom's okay downstairs, we know that the house is secure, whatever. The real smart home is a reality. Once you get beyond smart city, we haven't thought about that yet, but we're all ears all the times. But I'll be honest with you, not really something that we're focused on. If a municipality were calling and saying we'd like to do an experiment, you better believe we'd be all over it. But you have to build the use cases and make sure it made sense.
Yeah, no, of course. And this is all the speculative part of the podcast, right? It's what the audience members really like. It's what I'm, I absolutely love as well. But
but you rattled off 3 use cases.
Yes.
Right, the movement, where a lot of movement's happening, where a lot of movement is not. You're not even part of Origin, and boom, 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 you rattled off use cases that could be applicable for population density and other things like that. So they're there. We just haven't sat and thought about it.
Of course.
Down.
Of course.
So by all means, you're not even part of it. You could.
Well, yeah, we could set up a call later on.
Let's go.
Yeah, no, terrific. Yeah, because it's such an interesting technology. Like it really is. I'm not just saying this because you're on the podcast. When I first came across, it's like, whoa, this opens up a lot of doors. It opens up a lot of questions, concerns, and excitement. Everything that we've talked about in the podcast,
all at once,
everything all at once. And I guess you kind of spoiled it with your mention of Elon Musk Starlink, but I really see a point. Again, who knows about the time horizon, if it's 5 years, 15 years, 20 years, but it's most probably going to happen at some point in the next 100 years where the Earth is going to be covered in some Wi-Fi-like signal, right? Everything's going to be connected. And if your technology is placed on top of that, governments, individuals, like civilization as a whole is going to understand to a very, very fine-grained resolution of all of movement across the entire planet. Humans, animals, everything is going to be understood. And, the fascinating and terrifying ramifications of that, it's coming out here, in this podcast where, it's
happening,
being understood.
I totally agree with you that over time, who knows how long, there'll be Wi-Fi cornering the world. That's awesome. We love to think about that. Love to say, okay. And again, for me, back to your original question about what got me into this.
Yeah.
I did the same extrapolation you just did, right? You started like lining out these dots and you're like, oh my God, as long as the science is sound and all you need to do is read Dr. Liu's book. And by the way, if you're in the digital signal processing, the IEEEs of the world, and he is a world-renowned person. You can look him up on LinkedIn, and that's globally every other week. But all signs point to that focus and let this thing take off, and it takes off on its own, and as Wi-Fi goes across the world. So we're very excited about it. I mean, and I love the fact that we've only been speaking for 15 minutes, and you're already your mind is going to use cases that we haven't even talked about. That to me is a good sign.
Yeah. Well, that's also part of my job, right? Like whatever you want to label me as, strategic foresight practitioner, futurist, podcaster. It's
futurist. I like futurist.
Yeah. It's where my brain naturally goes, and these podcast episodes have certainly helped elaborate that part of the brain.
Love it, man.
Yeah, no, I'm truly fascinated by this technology. I think we have to get you back on in a year.
I would love
years, however long it's going to take for you guys.
Listen, can we shoot for a third quarter, fourth quarter next year? What do you think?
Sure. Let's schedule it in. I'm more than happy to have you back on.
Yeah, God willing, we're healthy and everything. Let's go. Just let me know, and I'm there.
Perfect.
But I would love to come back on because I think what you're doing is a great thing here.
Yeah, well, I mean, right back at you. It's again. Fascinating. I'm so happy that we live at this point in time, because it's really the time where you can see the kind of birth of these like really important things that are going to go across the entire planet. And again, we don't know. Let's say it's going to take 25 years to carpet the earth in Wi-Fi, and then maybe another 10 years to have your technology on top of it. But like, we're understanding the kind of ramifications that are going to happen with this. And yeah, it's fascinating. So thank you very much for coming on the podcast and talking about it today. It's
please invite me back. I don't usually do that with a lot of podcasts. I'd love to be back because again, you're talking about this is about future tech, and it would be great to connect the dot about what's happened just to us.
Yes,
in the future, like next year.
Yes.
So I'd love it, and thank you for having me on. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely. Well, thank you very much, Tony. I'm going to have your LinkedIn and your website up on the show notes. Are there any other places where you guys are active that you want some of the listeners to reach out or follow some of the work that you guys are doing?
Our website, originwirelessai.com. And that's it. Put my LinkedIn up, and we're good to go. I love it.
Perfect. Well, again, thank you very much for coming on. Great discussion. I'm probably gonna have to look a little bit more into this technology now that I've had you on, and maybe write some articles or something about it. But no, it was great.
Email me. We'll stay in touch. Whatever you need.
Perfect. Well, thanks again, Tony. I appreciate your time.
Thanks, Mark.
Cheers.
lot of future shock people and future shock institutions in our society. They're simply overwhelmed.
Once there is superintelligence, the fate of humanity may depend on what the superintelligence does.
Science fact is catching up to science fiction.
The first truly intelligent machine will be the last invention that humanity needs to make.
The only scarcity that will exist in the future is that which we decide to create ourselves as humans.
Within a 10-year design revolution, we can have all humanity living the highest standard of living anybody's ever known.
Progress is accelerating at an exponential pace, and it's going to reach a point where progress is so fast it's going to be a singularity.
We are probably one of the last generations of Homo sapiens.
Every single headline points to the birth pangs of a Type 1 civilization.